Alright, so today I decided to go through one of my dad's old RC cars. He was still using the nickel metal hydride batteries, and I want to switch him over to a lithium polymer battery just because it's lighter, you're going to get more power, and it's just overall better. The downside to using a LiPo battery like this is the older electronics that are usually in these vintage RC cars. And this one isn't even really that old. It has a brushless system in it, but it's a relatively newer or older brushless system that doesn't have what's called a LiPo cutoff. And that's really important to when your battery drops below a certain voltage, that it stops the car so that you can't drain the battery too far down and then either ruin the battery, catch fire, a lot of bad things when that happens. Also, he was using an old crystal type system on his RC car, and so that uses these crystals that have their own frequency, and you match this with the transmitter, and that's how they communicate. Well, with the newer technology, with the 2.4 gigahertz, you no longer have to do that. It creates its own channel, and then those two channels connect to each other, kind of like a radio, like a handheld radio. It's kind of the same thing. So yeah, I'm gonna go through the entire truck. I'm gonna make sure that everything's greased up and there's no broken parts on it and everything like that. So let's get into it. Couple of things that I'd like to do is just get this old Velcro and glue cleaned off, get all the electronics removed. I'm gonna replace, I think my dad put some heat shrink on this to protect this wire that's in here. I have some actual like expanding protectant for wires that I'm gonna replace this heat shrink with. And then I'll heat shrink the ends just to kind of keep it in place. It'll look a lot cleaner. His steering is a little bit loose. I'm gonna see if I can correct that. I can't really do anything about the ball joints and whatnot if those are loose. And I think a lot of the slop is in the steering, but I'll see if anything is loose and needs to get tightened up. In the back, there's a little bit of play in the gear movement between when the car is actually going to engage with the gear. So I'm going to get the back end kind of torn apart. I'm going to clean it up as well because it's just a little grimy. But then see if there's any parts inside of here that needs to get replaced. And if not, then I'll just clean up some of the old grease and then maybe just add some new grease and see if it'll just prolong the life of that gearbox. But other than that, this truck is in pretty good shape. Alright, so got all the parts out of the ultrasonic cleaner. Everything cleaned up pretty good. I got the Velcro taken off of the chassis. Got one of the new receivers mounted. And then I also took this heat shrink off of that wire, and then I put this protective sheathing on it. So now I got to get all the gear, all the bearings lubed up with grease, and then get all the gears put back in, put some white lithium grease in the gearbox, get all that put back together, and then I can start reassembling the rear end and then put the motor and ESC back in there, get some of the wiring buttoned up, and that should be it. This one should be about ready to go. So I was just about to start reassembling this, but you can see that rear pivot, this whole piece right in here, that has a crack in it right there, and you can actually pivot this. So I've already looked for this part online. I think you can buy it. It's definitely a discontinued part. However, I think I can get away with 3D printing this. It doesn't look too complicated. And if I model this and 3D print it, then if it breaks again, we can just print another one. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this modeled up, and then I'll get it printed out, and then mount it in here, and we'll see how it turns out. Pulled that part off of the printer. I ended up having to cut this area out here. It's because the transmission actually has to fit down into that groove. It's just the way that they designed it. I mean, they could have spaced this up just a little bit and made this an entire flat plate and made this a little bit stronger without really affecting the weight too much. But I'll get this reattached and then show you how it functions, and then we'll get it put all the way back together, and hopefully that truck will be done. No other broken parts. Alright, got that new part installed. So I had to reference the guide on how this goes because there's a little bit of a taper to this part. Got the correct size bolts to go all the way down in that frame, so it's supporting the shock tower on both sides all the way down into the frame. Now I'm going to get the transmission mounted back up, and you can see that works just as normal. I think it'll be just about as strong as the original part. went through the front end and got the front end tightened up as much as I could. Each of these little standoffs for the ball joint were loose at each junction, so I just went to each one of those and popped them off and then retightened all those. And then there was some bearings down in here for the steering components, so I lubed up those as well, put those back together, and then did some cable management just to get everything out of the way. And then now I'm going to go through the setup process. And so what I'm going to be doing is putting the bind plug. There's a slot, so you have channel 1, which is here, you have channel 2, and I'm not sure if channel 1 or channel 2 is the throttle or steering right now, so I might have to flip those around. And then there's a third channel, and then this last one should be for bind. So I'm just going to put this little bind plug in there before I connect the power up. I already have my transmitter on, but I'm going to put it into, actually I'm going to turn my transmitter off. I'm going to plug this in, turn it on, and now this should start blinking, which means that it's looking for the other pair to bind it. So I'm going to hold the bind button, turn the controller on, and now it's showing bind. So now I can let go of this, and it should find it. I had the same issue with my airboat before, where it took a couple of tries to get it to bind up before it would actually sink. So I'm gonna turn this off, turn it back on, and now everything should work. All right, so now I'll pull the bind plug out because we don't need that in there anymore. And now we can start setting up each of the controls. So that's turning the wrong way, so I'm going to reverse the steering. So now it turns the other way. But you can see that even though I'm turning the controller, let me reposition. All right, so you can see when I'm turning this that it gets to a certain point where it stops, but there's still a little bit of steering left in there. So we're going to want to set up a limit to where that can only go so far. So figure out how to work this thing. Let's see. I always have to relearn this every time that I go using one of these. All right. There we go. So EPA is what you want to go to. So now we're going to turn it that direction on steering. So you see how that left changes and then that right changes? So now we're just going to drag that down until the wheels start to move. So 65%. So now let's turn this and see, now that's our end point. So we're not stressing any of these components out trying to turn when it's not going to turn. So now we can go the other way and see if it does the same thing. Yep. So we'll modify that value down a little bit. And that will just go to 80%. Alright, so now should have throttle, which we do, and we have reverse. That reverse is really aggressive, so we're going to tone that reverse down. Yeah, so I basically struggled with this for quite a while. It turns out that the manufacturer of this ESC, which is Novak, they were back in like the early 2000s when they came out. So they had what was called a one-touch programming, and basically you just turn it on and follow the steps, and you push full throttle and full brake, and it programs the ESC to what the limits are. And after that got set up, it was pretty much ready to go. And my dad was coming over that day, and he ended up giving it a test drive. Yeah, it's got a brake and then a reverse. So it's got to be like a complete stop, and then it'll go into reverse.
Wow. I think it's got a lot of zip.
Yeah, those LiPo batteries, they're a lot more zoomy than those old NiCads, because they can just deliver so much power at once. Whereas like the NiCads and the nickel metal hydrides like take a lot to like get the power out.
They like need more weight or something.
Well, it's good that it's light, because light means quick. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe and follow along for more. See ya!